Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to ORH Hatter. I'm joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll as we dissect what has been a chaotic and not overly points-heavy Christmas period for Luton Town. Jamie, how are you doing? Any New Year's resolutions?
I wouldn't say any resolutions. Some goals maybe that are, I mean, probably away from Luton. Let's not get into those. But I'm sure 2020 have a few goals and hopefully a few resolutions in mind after what was a pretty catastrophic festive period. So yeah, it was a good break for me in terms of Christmas and New Year. But yeah, I'm sort of pleased there was no pods. Otherwise, it would have been even more depressing. I think to talking about it sort of for the next 2 or 3 hours. So yeah, I was pleased to have that little break, and yeah, it's now good to be back.
And Adam, anything that on your list of resolutions or things you'd like to give up in 2025?
Yeah, I can think of one thing I'd like to give up at the moment. No, no real resolutions. I mean, lose a bit of weight, but I think you can do that through the stresses of watching Luton Town at the moment. So I don't think it needs a gym membership or a particularly healthy diet. Just keep tuning in on Saturday afternoons, really.
Or not, because it'll make you drink more. So
Possibly, yeah, there is that as well. Yeah, counterbalance, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, for many people doing dry January, I'm sure Saturday's game or New Year's Day's game was a real push to try not to drink after what was a pretty horrendous first half, and we'll be talking all about that. But first, don't forget to check out our merch. I know it's just been Christmas, but it's still a great time to buy. We've got plenty of stuff on our website, oakroadhatter.com, and check out our socials as well for updates of everything we're doing and all of our thoughts on anything Luton Town related. So that's Oak Road Hatter on all your social media outlets and on our website. But yeah, we'll get straight into things and we'll talk first about the most recent game and then we'll talk a bit about the away games after that. Norwich City beat us 1-0 at home. And to be honest, they probably deserve that just based on that first half performance alone, Jamie. We were absolutely nowhere to be seen in that first half.
yeah, I think I wouldn't go as far as saying that they deserve the win based on just because of the first half. I think overall, I thought it was a fairly even game. I think we probably created marginally a few clearer chances than them, but yeah, I think you should say that the first half was um, pretty poor. I mean, for me, not quite as bad as ironically the Derby game that came before it. I think because I thought we were awful for that against a worse side for 90 minutes. But and obviously we got the win in the end. But I thought that whole game we were pretty poor, and I was pretty down after that game. But the first half, yeah, just I think I put in the group with you boys that it was pretty clear to see who was the more well drilled and better coached football team, and it was sort of, if you just take away the tactics conversation, I think we've sort of talked about that to death now in terms of square pegs round holes, players playing that position or players not sort of in their strongest position. I think obviously Chong left wing back was the most notable one at the weekend again, or sorry, on Wednesday again. But I think just away from tactics, like no matter what tactic you play, you still expect to see players that are coached and can knock it nicely, sort of around the park, and sort of nice passing moves and knowing where people are moving towards, and just general coaching drill stuff, right? And there was just no evidence of that. Just so disjointed in terms of the way the players were passing, really slow. And yeah, I think pretty clear to see that the Norwich coach manager is getting a lot more out of his players outside of tactics than Edwards is. And I think yeah, that after the first half, a few boos again. I didn't boo, and I never have, and don't think I ever will. But I can understand for those that were booing on the first half, because we were pretty poor and deserved to go in behind, I think. But yeah, I think going into the second half, it was much improved. Just again, urgency. Again, forget tactics, because apart from the last 10, 15 minutes, nothing really changed tactically. Obviously, the first changes came sort of in the 84th minute, bar the Clark injury or illness, whatever it was that was early on. So nothing really changed tactically, but just a bit more urgency, sort of pass and move, and something that looked a bit more cohesive. So again, without getting into the tactics of things, and clearly we disagree with the setup right now, but I think just generally there's some of the basics that were lacking in the first half were back in the second half, and overall on the basis of play, I thought we probably were good enough for a point. Maybe not quite all three, but we had, I mean, the Chong crossbar, and then Woodrow where I think Gunn he got fingers to it and he just hit the post as well at the end. Morris was through on goal and probably should have taken a shot first time, but then got blocked by Duffy as well. So there's sort of three chances that I can think of immediately without even having watched the highlights back at all. Just to suggest that we probably should have got something from the game, but still, again, not good enough. And yeah, we sort of, what's that, 3 straight defeats now. Something like 5 or 6 losses in 8 or 9. So yeah, not good enough.
Adam, obviously we've touched on the first half there, but the second half we did see some improvements, but there still seemed to be a lack of ideas or creativity in the team. It was pretty heavily reliant on Zach Nelson to create chances going forward, and you shouldn't really be relying on an academy graduate when you've got those senior figures in the side. What did you think? What do you think was missing from that, apart from players taking responsibility?
I think it's the same thing that's been missing all season. I just think it's an identity of how you want to play the game, like both going forward and defending. And I think back to successful seasons of the past. We always had an identity. I know we got criticised the year we went up because we were very direct and we played off the big strikers. But we don't even do that now because we lump the ball up and there's no one anywhere near them. And that partnership is so out of sync, it's unbelievable, which I never thought I'd say. So yeah, for me, it was just a case of we were missing and have always been missing this identity of how you want to play. Um, I watched the game and there's just nothing. There's nothing between our midfield and our forwards. Like there's no connection. There's no relationships. And so it's hardly a surprise when we just constantly give the ball away. And I, there's obviously a bigger story and a lot of discontent at the moment. But we're 25 games into the season, and we don't really show any sign of progression, and that's the biggest concern for me, because yeah, it's not getting better at all, is it really? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where we go from here.
You mentioned there the lack of connection between the midfield and the attack. I actually felt that our defenders, McGuinness in particular, but McGuinness, Holmes, Nakamba as well when he came on for Clark early on, I was really impressed by the defensive aspect of our team, and I thought they were probably some of the better players on the pitch during the game. I thought McGuinness really looked probably what we were hoping from when we bought him. I don't know if it's because it's taken some time. I thought Tom Holmes, since he's come into the squad, has been pretty good as well. So defensively, we were actually not doing too bad. But you spoke about it there, the lack of changes and the lack of change of plan or even any game plan was pretty clear to see. And we know Edwards doesn't make changes early. He never really has. But it was sort of next level in the game on New Year's Day, to the point where it got to, they scored in the 75th minute because you could see there was really tired legs in midfield at that point. Particularly Kraus, who'd played the full game at that point, and he's played 2 full games before that as well, 1 full game at least. And you could see where the goal was coming from. I think everyone could see the goal was going to come from a break and a player just pushing up in midfield and getting a shot away from range, because anything that was going into the box was coming to Holmes and McGuinness, who were clearing it up fairly well. But not changing anything at that point cost us a goal, really, because there was tired legs that just couldn't get to the player in time. And when they've got someone like Marcelino Nunes who can hit a shot from range, there's not that much you can do when there's no one able to get to him in time. The subs did come, but they didn't come to 85 minutes, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot to unpick on what you said. I think first of all, we agree on their goal. I mean, I said at the time, very similar to the Scott Twine one on Boxing Day, where it's fine if you're letting Shane Duffy shoot from 30 yards out because he's probably only going to score one out of 1,000 of those, and if he does, you just think, you know what, fair enough. There's not much you can do about that. But when you've got a pretty notorious long range shooter in Nunes yesterday, and then Scott Twine on Boxing Day, you can't give him that time and or space because you just know that given the opportunity, they're going to probably score 7 out of 10 of those shots that they get away. So I think just generally you just can't step up. I think kind of agree with what you said about subs for the goal. I think yes, there was probably a few tired legs, but I still expect them to prioritise the pressing when it comes to those moments. And he certainly had enough time for someone to be able to push up. And even if it's a centre half that pushes up, then you still expect them to try and get a block away. So I think I agree with the subs after the goal. I think maybe a bit harsh before, but yeah, I mean from the goal it was the 73rd minute. Subs were I think 84th minute. So that's 11 minutes, which in itself is way too long. But anyway, I mean, I'm pretty sure was it Duffy went down on the sort of the 77th minute after the goal and was probably down for the best part of 5 minutes. And even still, you were not ready for subs when you've had 5 minutes of the game's paused pretty much. You just saw Carl Trollope and Edwards on the side just chatting. They were probably chatting the best part of 15 minutes even before the goal, just sort of what do we do? And I think at this point you need to have game plans in terms of subject to things that happen in the game. This is the change you're going to do, and you should be able to spot early on what change you're going to make, and then you wait until the 84th minute. You bring on 4 players, of which 3 are centre forwards and 1 was a change because I think Walt was pretty down on his feet, and you switch Moses in for him, which is fine. But then you put on 3 centre forwards for what was it, Kraus, Nelson, and Eli. And then you've just said for our goal that there wasn't much in midfield because legs were gone. Suddenly you've switched to what I think was a 4-2-4, and your midfield 2 is Canva and Woodrow, and it's like, what are you doing? You've got no midfield still, and yeah, okay, you can lump it forward to a front 4. I think of Chong, Brown, Morris, and Taylor. I think it was in the end, but it wasn't sticking. And then when they win it back, they can so easily just sort of control the ball in the middle of the park and not and run that clock down. That to change themselves. In hindsight, I wish that, ironically, because we're moaning about the changes being late. Ironically, I'd rather them not have been made because the changes made us worse. There was no structure to the team after the goal or after the subs whatsoever. So it's just literally like rolling a dice and just hoping that it rolls a 6. Was yeah that for me was more frustrating than the time of the subs. Even though I'm still pretty annoyed about it taking that long after the goal. He should have gone to like a 4-2-3-1. He could have kept Nelson on in the 10. Could have probably kept on Kraus for a little bit, or done the Canberra plus Pelly, for example, with legs in midfield. Okay, fine, take Eli off and then push Chong up. Maybe put Moses out on the right. Like you can push more bodies forwards because you go away from that back 3, back 5 without just doing something ridiculous and just losing that midfield. So yeah, another reason as to why I just think Edwards isn't the man for the job is the in-game management piece. Again, forget tactics before the game because you can take a week and most people can try and set a team up, but tactically and put a team together as all the 10,000 fans try to do, as Edwards has said. And I think a fair chunk of them will probably get a decent setup right, but then it's how you react in game, and it's been an issue for a long time now in terms of his in-game changes. We've said on various occasions throughout the Premier League season where he probably could have done 1 or 2 things a bit different, either going forwards or defensively. So his in-game management is a really, really big issue for me now. Massive red flag, and I think one of the fundamentals of being a top manager has been able to impact a game, and Edwards just can't do that.
I was just going to say as well, they had the iPad out quite a lot, didn't they? And I can only assume they were playing Crazy Birds or something, because whatever they were doing on it and trying to get across was just not working at all. I think, Jamie, you hit the nail on the head in terms of the tactics, the game plans, the having an idea up your sleeve in terms of the game might go this way. If it does, this is what we're going to do. But it's almost like we go, do you know what? Sod it. Let's just chuck another two forwards on, sort of play them a bit out of position, and just go for it. And probably lucky not to lose it 2-0 in the end, with a couple of their late chances. So yeah, and I think what frustrates me as well is the amount Edwards is leaning on Richie Kyle and Paul Trollope. Like every scenario, he seems to need to speak to them, and I don't understand that at all. Like, you must have your own ideas of what you want to do. Why do you need such? First, I don't know why we need two assistant managers, but that's another story. But why do you need conversation all the time? To ultimately come out with the wrong thing. I don't understand what they're trying to do at all, because I don't think there's really one game where we've performed poorly and we've made changes and you thought, right, okay, this has been really good, like a real statement of intent, really good change. The games we've played well in are the games that we've started in. We've started well. The Watford and the Sunderland are the two that stand out. There's never really at all this season been a scenario where you go, do you know what? Fair play, you got that right, and we got something out of the game. And there may be one or two, but I can't remember them. So yeah, it's very alarming.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about the reaction to the subs coming on, Jamie, because you said about how frustrating it was that how late they came on. I'm sure you could hear it around you, but around me there was people stood up screaming at Edwards to make changes, really, really angry, like obviously angry around me. When he did make the changes, you got another one of those really sort of uncomfortable, ironic cheers. But it wasn't just small sections of the crowd at that point. It felt like it was probably 75% of Kenilworth Road gave an ironic cheer when the subs did come on. Annoyingly, they were going to come on and they sat back down again, which was just sort of the nail in the coffin on that subs front, because he got three of them ready. They all sat back down, and then four got up and they came on 5 minutes after they'd sat back down originally, and then the cheer went up. But I just touched on reactions. The post-match reaction was even worse.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, on the reaction to the subs, I mean, I don't boo, but I'd certainly joined in with the Wahays about a sub being made. I think you say 75%. That was near enough 90+%. I think even before the subs were made, there was people, you could hear like audible chatter around me being like, "Come on, Rob, make a sub. You've got to change something because it's the 84th minute." And bar an enforced change in the first 15 minutes, he's done nothing. So yeah, I think the reaction to the sub was the vast majority of the ground. The reaction at full time, again, it was probably reduced. It was probably less than half of the people were booing. Understandably, again, I think people largely are against booing. But still, it was audible in terms of the fan feeling. And I mean, I sit in the Kenny, as most of you know. So therefore, I'm nowhere near where the board of directors are, but by all accounts, there was some pretty hostile scenes down there at the front in the main stand, where the people would turn around and basically speaking their mind. And again, this is all hearsay, and by all accounts, it seemed like Mick Harford was the only one that was sort of facing up to it and sort of locking eyes with the people that were sort of given their distaste on how things are going right now. It seemed like Gary Sweet and Wilco were pretty much just trying to ignore it all, which again, yeah, I think that also raises a few alarm bells in terms of them just ignoring the current situation. I think I said a few weeks ago about that meme where everything is fine whilst the whole room is burning around them. It just very much feels like that in a minute. And yeah, I mean, I think that there's been some boos for a while, but I think yesterday seemed like it was elevated a bit more. Obviously, 9 straightaway defeats. Now, finally having lost a game which probably was coming, given the home performances up until that game on Wednesday. And yeah, I think it's a diminishing minority now of people that truly believe that either A, Edwards is the man for the job, or B, they back the board wholeheartedly. I think again, it's okay to say how great they've done with Premier League and Power Court, but it's also okay to really put the sort of the microscope now on how they're acting and conducting themselves, both directly in terms of not changing manager or not reacting in transfer windows. So clearly, okay, it's only January the 2nd, so it's way too soon to judge this month. But yeah, the windows to date have been pretty poor. But then also there's been things that you see on social media where you think they're just treating the fans with a bit of sort of just a bit blasé now. I think the way they interact with the fans, I think, is pretty poor. I think the way the way they have their just sort of their passive aggressive program notes. Long gone are the days where you used to see Gary Sweet and a few others fairly frequently in a pub away from home. Those days are long gone. So I'm not sure who Gary Sweet was pitching that Billy Big Bollocks message at, but maybe he probably should have said it to himself.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, like we're all very, very thankful of what the board have done over the last 10 plus years, because they've taken us on the best journey probably any football club's had. Um, but that doesn't mean that we have to be blinded and sit on the fence as to opinions. Like, I tweeted after the game the other day saying they've done amazingly well, but they also need to understand where they are making mistakes. And the program notes, it just doubles down on it, and that's what was really pissing me off, is that they seem just they seem to not listen to the majority voice and double down on the fact that we're not the sort of club that sacks managers, and we're going to give him time, and we're not Watford who sack Edwards. Well, Edwards has had long enough now, right? We've gotten until the January transfer window, 25 games into the season, and that's if you look at this season objectively, on its own, right? And we are terrible, and we're in a relegation battle without a doubt. So you can separate the thankfulness of the board, but also still feel quite aggrieved at the way they are treating the fans' majority opinion, and their complete kind of failure really to act on what is clearly a very alarming scenario. So yeah, I just want to make that point, because we are very critical at the moment, but it doesn't mean that we're not grateful and thankful for what's gone before. But clearly there is something not working, and that needs to be addressed.
And it's huge warning signs when inside the ground you've not only got fans directing their frustration towards Edwards as he did his lap of the pitch as he has done for every game for the last couple of seasons now. There was a lot of frustration coming from the end we were in. People stood down at the front shouting at him. He wasn't acknowledging it. Obviously, there was a few people clapping, which he was acknowledging. The players seemed to be trailing back a bit, I noticed, and sort of stepping away from the hostility at the front. So I'm not sure what that says. I might be reading that into that too much. But I think the main concern is that, and the thing that the board should really be concerned about is now the frustration in the stadium is being turned towards them. Because not only is it being turned towards them, there's fans now arguing with each other quite loudly. A friend of mine said that two people behind him were stood in each other's faces, screaming at each other at full time because one person was shouting at the board, another person was shouting at them back, and it's starting to cause real tension within the ground and make a real hostile atmosphere, but for all Luton fans rather than for the opposition team, Jamie.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to that. I think no matter what someone thinks the season was going to bring, it certainly should never have brought this situation, and for that, the board are the ones that are accountable for it. I think, okay, you could put the blame on Edwards' door for not changing things tactically. You can put the blame on the players' door maybe for playing under their level. But fundamentally, the board are the ones that signed the players. The board are the ones that gave Edwards a 4-year contract, despite, again, don't want to be harsh, despite failing in the Prem last year. Okay, we didn't stay up, but by all means, don't sack the guy. But you give him a 4-year contract, and okay, yeah, we might have all been grateful at the time because he signed a 4-year contract and that meant he was staying. But you've now put yourself in a position where the only reason I can see that he's not gone is compensation. Like there's no other reason out there why Edwards is still in the job other than he costs too much to get rid of, and that is the board's doing. You cannot put yourself in a situation. Like yes, we all believed Edwards was the right man for the job. But we're not having to go at the board for sticking with Rob to start with, because I thought he was man for the job. I mean, I put in the 4-4-2 mag. I thought we'd finish second this season. So I'm looking at a pretty big fall as well in terms of what I thought we were going to achieve this season. But this was always a possibility that Edwards could fail so badly that you'd want to get rid of him. So why give him such a good contract that meant you can't get rid of him because he's gonna cost too much? So yeah, the board had to be accountable for that, and fundamentally, whether or not they want to pay that money, then that's their own fault. To be honest, it's not Edwards' fault. Again, I think his quotes after the game in terms of not walking away are a bit different to what he said to what he was saying after the Borough game. But at the end of the day, he got us to the Prem. He got us 125 million or whatever it was. He probably deserves 4 or 5 million of that himself. And to be honest, I can't blame him. If that was me and I was due anything between 2 and 4 million for getting sacked, I'd probably hang around, because at the end of the day, there's not really any friends in football, is there? So. And people comparing it to the Rooney situation. Well, it's Wayne Rooney, one of England's all-time best goal scorers, and he probably doesn't really need that much money. Whereas Edwards clearly wasn't as successful and is less wealthy than Rooney is. So it's a completely different sort of situation. But yeah, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but the board just need to just do something, and I think that's where we're all at right now, because it's all well and good spending £8 to £10 million in January on new players, but if you've not got the right man for the job at the helm, it's going to be a waste of money itself, and you may as well have just paid him off in the first place.
Yeah, I almost respect Edwards because he's so intent on trying to make it work. His stubbornness is almost respectable. It's saying, I imagine being that stubborn, I would be the worst person in the world if I was like that. So I can almost respect him for just saying he's going to stick it out. But it is weird because of how he reacted after that Middlesbrough game to then saying this time. What's changed in that time? Because we've certainly not started playing better if he believes we have. We're going to briefly touch on the away games as well, because as Jamie mentioned a bit earlier, we're now 9 games away from home in a row with defeat. And that is really, really shocking, Adam. The Bristol game against a mid-table, as mid-table of a team as you can possibly get in Bristol City, and even their fans will agree with that because they are consistently 12th. So it's not me having a dig at them. They are just consistently 12th every season. And that would be great to be 12th place, but we offered nothing in that game. And then Swansea, we got a goal from a goalkeeper mistake, and it's a goalkeeper mistake from Vigouroux, who had a shocker against us in the first game with a mistake. So just fancy giving us some hope in the second game, I guess. And then we offered absolutely nothing in Swansea. And there's quite a few. There was probably about 800 Luton fans there who'd it was a long journey. And there was just nothing to cheer about in that game at all.
No, nothing in either game. I mean, if I was a bit braver, I would have put money on Scott Twine to score, because that was always going to happen, because he's a very good player and someone we should have been after. And yeah, it was obviously a brilliant strike, and I don't think the only thing you can really say on that is we could have pressed him, because clearly he's a very good attacking midfielder that can pull that out of the bag. So yes, we could have pressed him a bit more, but he's put it in the top corner. Sometimes you're a bit like, okay, fine, but after that we didn't do anything, did we? I think we had a chance from Phillips' cross. Suddenly we've got a player who's 17 or something that can actually cross a football, which is yeah. I mean, it's desperate considering where we are. And Woodrow puts it straight at the keeper. So that's game number, what was that, 8? Number 8 in a row ticked off, defeat. Number 9 comes 3 days later at Swansea. Goalkeeping gaff. Good finish from Morris, to be fair. Like, he has to bring it down, or, kind of get it down under control and in the back of the net before defenders come on him. So, yeah, good from him. But you could see it coming a mile off, couldn't you? It was just, you know, just wave after wave of Swansea pressure. They dominate the ball as we know they do with players like Matt Grimes. They're getting it out wide. They're just they're just playing football that we could only dream of in terms of that intent and identity. And yeah, I just really wasn't surprised to see us concede in injury time. There's only so much luck you can have, and we got very lucky against Derby, and obviously that was reversed against Swansea. So that was number 9. I don't know where we are for number 10. Does anybody know?
We're at
QPR
our
on Monday.
friends QPR on Monday night.
Oh, and they're in form as well, aren't they? And we'll come on to them. So it's just terrible. Like, it really is terrible. I mean, someone like Simon Pitts will know, but did we lose 9 away games in a row under Graham Jones? We must have got the odd point here or there, and we were terrible
Can't
then.
have done. Surely not. Surely not. No,
Yeah,
I think our record is 13 in terms of like in LTFC history. 13 is the record, and we got to 7 in the Prem last year, and that was the last 7 aways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
9 so far this season.
Yeah. So I've got a lot of admiration for anybody that's still going to away games. You're spending your hard earned money, probably getting up at stupid o'clock. I'd question your sanity, but fair play to you all for doing it. And if you carry on doing it, then I think you deserve some form of acknowledgement and something back from the club, really, because it's pretty pathetic all round.
Yeah, I think the away form is probably more concerning than anything at all, because to me it says there's a complete lack of character within that squad, and there's a lack of players that are going to step up and go, we're away from home here, we need to be tough to beat and we need to be resolute, and all we've got is a disjointed group of players who occasionally we might score a goal, usually we don't. The defenders occasionally play well. Actually, McGuinness, Holmes, I mentioned them again. Again, they were pretty good. But when they're defending over and over and over again, because we're just giving the ball back to them because we've got 70% pass accuracy, you can see the goals coming eventually, because there's only so long you can hold out for before they work out a way to get through you. And that's been the case in pretty much all of those away games, because our defence have been put under so much pressure, and because our midfield can't put 2 passes together, and our attack can't do anything if it's not a ball over the top into to bring down on their chest or something. So we're just completely disjointed, and there's no ideas, Jamie.
Yeah, no ideas. Nothing again to add to that. I think obviously I wasn't at either of the aways, but I watched both in full on TV. And yeah, I think Bristol City was probably the worst of the two. I think Swansea were a little bit better, but certainly still deserved to lose. I think what's more alarming now is going forwards. I think defensively we're looking better. I think, and by that I mean the centre halves defensively. Okay, from the midfield obviously could do more, but defensively from a last ditch perspective, I think we're doing okay. I think McGuinness is looking better now, and I think is been harshly treated by some of the fans in terms of sort of their attitude towards him. I think again the price tag obviously contributes to that, but I think he's playing well in general. But to have only scored 1 goal in these 3 Christmas games is pretty poor, and that one goal isn't because we've pressed really high and won the ball back. It's because the goalkeeper's basically done a 5-yard square pass to Carter Morris and put it in the net. That's no, despite modern day managers suggesting that it was a forced turnover because of a high press and putting him under pressure. Figueroa was under no pressure whatsoever when he just passed it square to Morris in his feet. So that was in no way down to us. It was purely because of a brain fart from them. So yeah, I mean we've scored no goals from our own attacking football in 3 games now, which is pretty poor, and a real big red flag again.
I don't want to say anything in particular that's going to get clipped up by any club admin, but when you've got Bristol City fans on Twitter saying they're the worst team we've seen, and they are the serial mid-table, or have been the serial mid-table, very average team in the Championship, then kind of makes you reflect a bit, doesn't it? And think, bloody hell, we must be absolutely shocking, really.
Yeah, and we'll end on that because I'm sure there'll be some lovely club admin that sees that and decides Adam's perfect for their social media account. After the break, we'll be looking ahead to the visit to QPR, which, I mean, who knows? We might make it 10 in a row or we might get a win. And we'll also be talking a bit more about the transfer window. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie and Adam. And as I mentioned, we are going to be looking ahead to the trip to QPR. But before that, there's something else that we need to discuss. And I know the whole country has been getting into the spirit of the darts. And it seems that that's reflected onto the Luton squad as well, because by what we've seen on social media, and it's quite clearly the Luton players, because there's not that many. There's no way there is 6 or 7 lookalikes that are that good in the country that are friends of each other going to the darts. But the Luton players were at the darts supposedly after the game yesterday, but there's no. I don't know if there's any proof of that. The more concerning thing is what they're wearing, because there's a group of them wearing "Don't Tell My Boss I'm at the Darts" t-shirts, and we've had 0 points over the Christmas period. So I'm not sure what that says about their opinion of the people paying their wages at the moment. And it's probably a joke, and it is, well, it's definitely a joke that's been blown out of proportion, but it doesn't put good messages out to the fan base who are already very annoyed, Jamie.
No, I agree. It's a joke, but it's not a good look, is it? I mean, nothing against them whatsoever going to the darts. Nothing against them whatsoever having a few beers, unless it's obviously it's the night before a game. Was probably that's a bit different because you're preparing for game the next day. But look, they're not playing for 4 days now, so by all means, fill your boots, have a few pints, and watch the darts. I mean, I've done it and it's brilliant. So don't blame them whatsoever. But the t-shirts probably is a step too far. I mean, by all accounts, they're apparently given out by Paddy Power at the football. Oh, sorry, at the darts. But for 4 or 5 of them to put it on and think it's okay, you could probably just lack a few brain cells there. So it's not really a good look. Bearing in mind that their boss was booed off the pitch probably 4 hours earlier. Their CEO and chairman was sort of shouted out from the stadium sort of 4 or 5 hours ago. Yeah, it's not really good look, but yeah, by all means go, but just maybe be a bit more low key. And it's not even as if it's players that are not really at the forefront of the team. It's not quite club captain, but as good as club captain Colton Morris. You've got Tom Holmes, who's a bit more senior, and he's playing this. And then you've got some young ones there in terms of Taylor and Johnson. But then you've got Shazy and Krul as well, who are definitely senior guys. And I think Shazy was wearing one of the t-shirts, and he's the nicest guy going, isn't he? So I'm not sure if that says anything about his boss right now. So yeah, again, not overly bothered about them at the darts, but yeah, probably don't wear those t-shirts.
And it's a pretty high-profile place to be at the moment because the UK has gone bunting mental, as I mentioned, Adam. And for players who, it's not like they're not known footballers, because some of them did spend a season in the Premier League on camera pretty much every week. So they were obviously going to be spotted. And when there's already lots and lots of people talking about the club at the moment and the situation, you've got the Second Tier podcast calling us one-dimensional, a shambles at the back, and saying what more is it going to take for Edwards to be Saka assumed. It's a pretty bad look to be. I don't care. Like Jamie, I don't care they're at the darts. By all means, it's a good way of bonding. It's great team bonding, and team bonding is probably what we need at the moment.
Mm.
But maybe don't wear those t-shirts, even if they were given to you on the way in. Try and be a bit more subtle, or wear fancy dress that keeps your face covered up.
Yeah, like go dressed as Nathan Jones or something. No, I think, yeah, I mean, I just think maybe if you're a player there and you think we've just been booed off the pitch in front of apparently 11,000 people, like PS, that's bollocks. There was never 11,000 people there. Um, maybe maybe just have a quick think about, we're on Sky Sports. There's going to be obviously Luton fans watching. Are they going to really like take that kindly to that sort of in joke? I don't really think they are, given the state of play. So yeah, maybe it would have been a bit of uh, a bit in hindsight. Maybe just think about how that's going to come across to the people that put money into the club and basically pay their wages. Again, no issue with them going out. Like if you want to go out and get hammered, then fine. I mean, ironically, they could turn up on a Saturday hammered and probably play better. So I don't mind that at all. But maybe just have a quick think about how it might come across to a lot of pissed off Luton fans at the moment.
Yeah, we'll move on from that because I mean, there's other talking points that are probably more serious than that at the moment because it is just a night out at the end of the day. But yeah, it's not a great look as we mentioned. But we're going to look at ahead to the trip to QPR, and it's Monday night with fans able to pay the lovely amount of £38 to go and watch Luton away at QPR, which I'm sure we're all very happy about. Um, First of all, that's a pretty terrible amount of money to be charging for a Monday night game on Sky. Um, but when you look at it, they've just hit form, Jamie. They've just beaten Watford 3-1 at home, and their next game is against the most out of form away side in the world.
Yeah, and that's after beating one of the other pretty bad away teams in Watford as well, and they've beaten pretty easily, even though they're not as bad as us right now. So yeah, it's gonna be a game where I very much expect a 10th straight away defeat. I can't see how we're going to go there and get anything. I think other than that game that we got promoted, which well, ironically was one of Edwards' first away games after Borough. I think other than that, it's been a pretty tough place to go to for Luton. Our record there, I think, isn't too great. So when it's against the odds like it is now with a pretty dire away team, I can't see anything. Just signed Roddy Edwards as well, a player that we've all mentioned that we would have loved on loan. So if that adds to their back line, you've now got a partnership at the back of Jimmy Dunn and Rob Edwards, which is pretty good for this level. So yeah, I can't really see anything going our way. And you can probably tell by my voice I'm not going because yeah, I'm not spending £38 on that shit anyway.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear fans are starting to vote with their feet and their wallets on the performances away from home. And when you've got a side charging that much, I can't see it being a sellout, unlike the last time we went to QPR in the league, which was a great performance. But yeah, I can't see us seeing that again. They've also got some very dangerous players going forward. The likes of Ilias Chair is someone who I think needs mentioning. He obviously missed a good chunk of the season because of injury, but he's now back and he can cause serious problems, especially in our favourite position to concede from, cutting in. Adam, can you see us getting anything?
No, I can't. I'll expand on that because obviously we need to fit a bit of time, but I really can't. I think, yeah, I look at, they got Frey up front, I think it was second half in the game at our place was a massive handful, and kind of didn't really, McGuinness didn't cover himself in glory. I think it might have even been his debut. I'm not sure, but Frey certainly had the battle and hit on him that day. And then either side of them they've got Paul Smith, who's little winger but really good player, quick. Ilias Chair, who we know all about already. On his day, one of the best at this level, I would say. It's just for him, how often does that day come, really, I suppose. But yeah, and then even looking kind of at other players, they've got some good experienced players like Jack Colback's on the bench. They've got Sam Field midfield as well, so they've got some decent control. They've got the addition of Edwards at the back, and they've got some good forwards. So unless something drastically changes for us, and I don't know. I mean, I guess Lamine Fane might come in. I don't know whether they're going to throw him straight in, if I'm honest. But like a change like that might be the thing that gives us a little bit of something different, and maybe means that we can get something on the road. But I'm not sitting here overly optimistic, much like you guys and probably everybody listening as well.
You mentioned, Fane might come in, and I'm sure everyone would love to see that happen because, we did spend a decent amount of money on him, and it's been a while since we actually signed him. How much do you think he's regretting the decision at this point, Jamie, after his teams that he's just left has got into Europe and he's come to us for a relegation battle?
Yeah, he could be in the Conference League next season, but he also could be in League One. So, yeah, he's probably having a few, I wouldn't say doubts because it's too late, but he's having a few thoughts to himself in terms of whether it was the right move. I'd throw him in. We can't get much worse. If anything, now we almost have to prioritise the future and put in the players that are going to be with us for the longer term. And I think Darbo's going to be one of the guys that probably will stick around for a while. And yeah, I don't know what's happened to Clark. He might miss out. If he does, it'll be because of illness or injury. Kraus, I think it's been probably unfairly critiqued right now. I think I've seen a few things where he's looked like a sort of a Alan Campbell with like less legs, worse tackling or whatever. I think he's better than Alan Campbell, to be honest. I think he's just playing in a system that doesn't benefit him, and I think he's having to cover more yards than he's used to in a season that he's not used to, because right now in Germany he'd be having a sort of a 2 week break, and he's having to play 90 after 90 at the minute. So yeah, maybe give him a rest, but I think he's certainly one of our better midfielders and would start him week in, week out. So yeah, I'd probably have a midfield three of Darbo, Kraus and Nelson if it was me. But yeah, who knows what Rob's going to do. I think you could just throw 11 names in a hat and just see where it ends up at this point. This Chong left wing back, I guess, experiment is continuing, and for as good of a player as I think Chong can be going forwards, he just quite clearly isn't a left wing back, and we need to just go to a back four or stick Joe Johnson there. Just again, one for the future. Just put Joe Johnson there and just give him a run of games just to show him to show us what he can do. Yeah, no idea what he's going to do with the team on Monday night.
Well, Johnson actually played that left wing back role against Swansea until he was sent off for a second yellow card. The first yellow was harsh, and I thought he actually did okay at left wing back, but we had so little of the ball, he couldn't do anything going forward. So he was just defending constantly. And for a young player to be doing that all game is a lot of pressure, but he's probably our best option in that area because Chong certainly is not a left wing back. And I think we've seen that time and time again. And the fact that he's persisted with him there is, I think, are pretty unfair on Chong as well because of the amount of criticism he's getting. But it's just so frustrating as well when there's other options available. You could have played Moses on the left. He's done it before. He's not awful there. So, yeah, I can't see us getting anything from it either. We're going to do some score predictions on that basis. And Jamie, I'm going to start with you.
2-0 QPR. That's it.
Nothing to add to that.
Nothing to say.
Adam?
Nothing to say. I can't see us going to them and scoring right now based on how we're playing. I think they're a team that largely are pretty tight defensive. I think they do give the odd goal away here or there, but we're not exactly pulling up trees going forwards. And yeah, I think defensively we're looking better, but I just think in an atmosphere like it'll be on Monday under the lights, there's a bit of animosity between the clubs, so the QPR fans will be well up for it. And if I'm honest, they'll be looking at that game thinking, we can get 3 or 4 here, and we could really embarrass them if that was us against QPR at the Kenny, and they'd come to us in our form. I'd be thinking I would love to put 3 or 4 past Leeds lot. So I'm not sure it'll be quite that bad, but I think we certainly will let in more than one. So I'm going to go 2-0.
Adam?
Yeah, I think it could be that bad if I'm being honest. I mean, like we went there 2 or 3 years ago, completely played them off the park, 3-0, smashed them to pieces. I can see a repeat just reversed. So I'm going to go 3-0. I don't I just think it's going to be another game where we don't have anything in midfield. We get dominated in midfield. We don't have that connectivity. So, and I can't believe it because like QPR probably are second biggest rivals by Watford. You'd think. So yeah, to sit here and go, I think we're going to go there and lose 3-0 is utterly depressing. But that is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, I also can't see us getting anything, and I can't even see us scoring in it as well. I don't think they're as good as their 3-1 win against Watford makes them out to be, but I do see them scoring more than once. I agree with you, Jamie. I think it's going to be 2-0, but I'm not sure it's a 2-0 that will give us much to be pleased about because I can't see us producing anything in that game. We'd love to know your score predictions, and maybe you're as optimistic as we are. So let us know in the comments or get in touch with us on socials. That's out at Crowed Hatter. Finally, I just wanted to talk a bit about the transfer window because it has opened. Everyone's favourite transfer window, January, where it's hyped up quite a lot and then quite often not that much tends to happen. But we need to see stuff happen. I think we need to see 3 or 4 players come through the doors on top of what's already happened. But we have signed one already, and he might be our saviour because he's called Christ Makosa. What do you know about him, Jamie?
Nothing. Yeah, I think from what I've seen from your highlight reel and your blog, I think he looks promising, and by all accounts, I think a bit like Darbo could show what he's made of in the years to come. But I think in terms of the here and now, I don't see him coming in and getting many minutes this season. I think what you've got Holmes there is clearly, I think, based on the players that can actually have 2 knees and just sort of 2 fully working legs. I think he's probably the first choice right side of centre back, and then you'd expect as and when they come back, but Anderson, Mengi, etc. would come back in and be ahead of Mikoso. So I think on that left side is probably where we need a centre half more. Again, I'm not sure Mikoso could play on the left, but it'd be pretty tough to throw him in on that left hand side, which isn't his strongest side. So I think I'm positive. I'm positive about the signing. I think it's good that we're looking at these sort of players. Certainly shows a step change in terms of recruitment and going out and bringing in players early. It's the Brighton model, and yeah, I think not all of them will come off. I think there could be 1 or 2 duds that are signed, but there could be 1 or 2 gems that go on to be some pretty big sales going forward. So I think it's positive, but definitely for me doesn't come into my evaluation of this window. I think when we come to the end of January, I wouldn't even mention it really as a signing. I think it's more of a case of looking at who can impact for these next 6 months. So good start. I mean, it's rare that we sign a player before the window even opens, especially on New Year's Eve. So it always makes it nice to see something done early. But yeah, the jury is out for the next 29 days or so.
And Adam, what do we need? If you had to give me 1 or 2 things that we desperately need right now,
Just 1 or 2.
I'm afraid I'm going to limit it for now.
I don't know how to summarize it in 1 or 2. I like intent. So any player with some sort of intent in their respective position. That's probably the biggest thing for me, and maybe control as well. That's probably what I would say. I mean, I do completely agree with Jamie. I think this is a good signing, but I think he's 20 years old, maybe like never played in England. He's going to make the move and the transition over here as well. So I can't see him coming in straight away and making an impact. Um, Whereas maybe Lamine Darbo, he's played in a competitive league and got his team into Europe. So perhaps he's one that will have more of an impact right now. I mean, we touched on Ronnie Edwards already. For me, that would have been ideal. It's someone who's played League One, was signed by Southampton. It's got a lot of promise and would probably seamlessly fit into any Championship team. So the fact he's gone to QPR, disappointing because had he gone to like a Sheffield United or a Burnley, he might have gone, okay, fine. Well, we were never going to compete. So yeah, I was disappointed to see him go there. I think we really do need 3 or 4 players for right now, in addition to Lamine Darbo. You know, we need players that are going to come in that have a certain amount of experience at this level and make an impact, and give certain other players a kick up the backside, and you know, really drive us forward. So I'd love to see us kind of delve into the Premier League, whether it's the loan market, not necessarily for like young players, but you know, can we go and get a couple of loans from players that are not featuring that much for Premier League clubs, but are also established? You know, it's all well and good building for the future, but you have to address the situation as it is right now. And so I do think we need 3 or 4 players with really good pedigree, you know, to come in and really be pushing for a starting place as well.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of areas we need, I think Adam mentioned Ronnie Edwards as I did earlier. I can understand why we may not have gone for him. I think because again he's a right-sided centre half, and that's not what we need as much. I think yes, of course he would have improved us, but I think probably need to focus our efforts elsewhere. I think a left-sider categorically is what we need. I think Amari Bell has done great for us, but probably now is starting to lose a few legs, and certainly as a minimum needs competition. And if that's someone that can also play left back and a 4, Rob, that would be good, given that you've openly admitted that we haven't got someone that can play left back. So maybe if you think that, then sign someone. But for me, I think we just need a deeper lying midfielder that can progress the ball, that can grab the game by its neck and just try and pull something together. Maybe someone that can just progress either through carrying the ball or passing the ball. Because especially a game on Wednesday, all we can do is either round the sides or over the top. That's the only way we can go through a team, and we've got no one that can just pass through the lines at the minute. So someone that has that ability, I think, is super important. Again, we mentioned Ben Sheaf in the summer, clearly too expensive. Matty Grimes for me would have been a perfect backup. Clearly not going to happen now, but someone in that mould that can, at the base of a midfield 3 or in a sort of a 2-man pivot, if we go to a back 4, that can really just sort of progress the ball from deep. Because I think if you can have someone behind Krause and someone else, be that Clark or Nelson, for example, then I think you start to get a midfield that starts to look a bit more cohesive. So I think for me that categorically is the number one place that I think we need, because otherwise it's going to be the same of side to side passing at the back and ends up at a wing back, which then goes round the sides of them and goes through that way, or it's going to be more long balls over the top to Morris and Eli, and then it doesn't stick on them, and then we lose the ball again. So we need to try and do something different, and that's play for the Lions. And I don't think we've quite got a midfielder right now that could do that for us.
Yeah, we're lacking in a few areas, and I think we're lacking leadership as well. So, whilst it's great to be signing these young players who have got hopefully great futures to come, I think we need established championship players who are willing to do the battling, because we seem to be lacking that at the moment. We need leaders, we need experience, we need someone who's been there and done it and is ready to do it again, because we're really inexperienced in that area of the pitch, particularly midfield, I think. So that probably would be my priority, aside from someone to fill in on that left, because we are utterly useless without Alfie on the left. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening has got plenty of things they'd like to see us do in the transfer window, and we'd love to hear from you as well on that. So let us know in the usual way. But for us, I think that's everything from today's episode. So plenty of positives for you to discuss from what we've had to say. But we hope you've enjoyed listening to us, and a Happy New Year to everybody. And maybe, just maybe, we won't suffer 10 defeats in a row after QPR. But thank you for listening.